Ok. Voy a empezar en español, primero que nada porque estoy en el país en el que nací, en el país en el que crecí. Tengo invitados que son familiares y amigos. And just the translation is, I felt the need to open up in Spanish because this is a place where I was born, where I was raised, and I do have some close friends and family visiting this special day. I can tell that a lot of you are really eyeing the title. I know it sounds aggressive, but it's real. And this was inspired actually by my wife. She knew what I was going through as I was trying to present. And for the record, the rest of the presentation will be in English, but there will be a translation if need be. So, adapt or die. I think specifically for me, I'm addressing the founders, my fellow founders that I work with every day. And I think it applies in more stages than just a startup, but specifically today, I want to focus on every one of the founders. I know it seems like we're exchanging roses, but at the end of the day, I do have to give credit to PlebLab. As Carl mentioned, a couple of years ago, I was just a pleb who moved to Austin, wanted to build something, and between Carl and Kyle, they pretty much hugged me and said, hey, we like you, we like your vision. We don't really know where it's gonna go or how you're gonna get there, but you seem to be the person that could potentially withstand all the many steps and falls that happen in the journey. So not only that, you mentioned it, but this is now my fourth consecutive startup day that I'm participating in one way or another. And as of today, PlebLab becomes an international Bitcoin institution. So I'm really proud of you too, man. A round of applause. Also, on a personal note, you mentioned it too. I didn't know you were going to talk about it, but I do feel like it's a full circle moment for the journey we've taken as Yopaki. I'll talk about it more, but I feel like it's pretty special to be able to support PlebLab this time around, given all the crazy changes that happen and accommodations and weeks that change day in and day out. And just to be able to talk and say, hey, I need your help. Can you step in? So to give back this way, to me, that's pretty special. So that's just something that, again, presenting in front of the people I love and the people I work with in such a moment like this in the country where I was born is something special. So again, thanks for putting this together. Didn't mean to get emotional there, but that's just who I am. There's a few takeaways that I do want to share from prior startup days. And the three top from my personal experience, talking to you, the founders, came from Parker Lewis, from formerly Unchained and now Zapright, who said, TLDR, for the record, if you don't know what TLDR means, it's just too long, did not read, give me the short version of what the talk was. Parker Lewis talked about the importance of building in the Bitcoin ecosystem, and one of the first things we should focus on is build something that doesn't exist, something that you are interested in. Otherwise, if there's no passion, it doesn't really matter. So to me, that was very important. The second one is Keon from Stacker News. And if you know Keon, what I'm gonna read is gonna make you laugh, and if you don't, hopefully you can understand what he was getting to. But Keon, at one of the startup days, he talked about the only way you can truly become a founder is by making everything else out there, everything, be the most painful thing possible. So what does that mean exactly? Being a founder is a 24-hour job, passion, love, work, hobby. It really goes day in and day out. The phone doesn't get disconnected, the computer's always at bay, there's always phone calls, texts. So that's what he meant. If you don't like that, if you want to show up to work, clock in and clock out, a startup is not for you, and that's okay. But as a founder, that's something I really understood from what Keon was talking about. And lastly, the most recent startup day was given by Andre from Zebedee, whose topic was being a founder sucks. And yes, he did talk about all the terrible things that happen, things that go wrong, investors telling you you're gonna fail, family telling you you're gonna fail, maybe stop working on this hobby, move on to something else. And this happens day in and day out. So given this, I wanted to build on top of that and continue on the same topic, but from my personal experience, which is you adapt or you die. A little bit about myself. If you don't know my past, I'll share that in maybe 30 seconds, but as you know, Francisco Chavarria, I'm the CEO and co-founder of Yopaki, and that's my Twitter handle. I still refuse to call it X. And just sharing my fiat resume. I probably have one of the most fiat resumes that exist in the Bitcoin ecosystem. At one point, I worked in the payment card industry. That means I was close to banks and the payment processors. Later on in life, I moved into marketing technology and social media analytics, which means surveillance, social media listening. And later on, I worked for a corporate social responsibility tech company, which means ESG and all that stuff that we know is a scam. So if we combine these three, we have a super fiat resume. So ironically, I held different positions at all these companies at different times, whether it was an SDR or an account executive, director, vice president, and I was responsible for go-to-market strategies for these companies in Latin America. After doing that multiple times for some of these companies, it was time for me to say, I'm sick of doing this for others, not to mention it's a scam. So what can I do? And following Parker Lewis's advice, I thought, oh man, it would be amazing if there was a Bitcoin-only exchange that serves the Mexican population. There are exchanges in Mexico, by the way. There's many. And there's one that's really big, who's great, but it's not Bitcoin-only. So fast forward, and that's when I met my co-founder, Carlos. I don't know if he's here, but he's in the back, okay? As Car mentioned, I met Carlos, also Mexican-born, because of the connection with PlebLab. I met Carlos because of a friend we have now, mutual friend, Tony from Mutiny, and he made this relationship possible. We talked, we got really excited, and I don't know if you remember, Carlos, but we were really pumped to build. Really, really pumped. One of the first mistakes we made at the beginning was that we announced that we were building something when we really didn't have anything. So we were really pumped to build. And that was the first time we died. That was the first time we died. A couple of months passed. We had no interest from investors. No one really knew who we were. We were just a couple of plebs hanging out in Austin. So we had to adapt or die. And what did we do? This is now going back a year and a half. How can we generate buzz? How can we make something out of nothing that we currently have? So, as Steve Jobs would say, we started thinking differently. At the time, Mexico had never had a Bitcoin-only conference that was non-technical. Nifty Nate did throw a Bitcoin++, but many people in the country had talked about, oh, we should do a Bitcoin conference one day, this and that, and it never really happened. So one of the things that Carlos and I decided to do was call it the Block Party, that eventually evolved into a bunch of shenanigans that people still talk about today. As you know, one of the things we did during exactly a year ago was not just the conference, which we hadn't originally thought as a conference, but we flashed the Central Bank of Mexico, which I think at this point most of you in the room have seen it or you were there. I can see Lynn smiling in the back. So just a quick recap. Some of the plebs who took part in our crazy BitSignal adventure in 2023. And it was really fun because it was spreading all over the news. Bitcoiners projected image of Bitcoin in the Bank of Mexico. The message of hope fixed the money, fixed the world. And altogether between Diario Bitcoin, Bitcoin Magazine, Crypto Noticias, and Bitcoin News, we generated over 3.2 million impressions, which is pretty cool for a bunch of plebs. So, once again, we were so pumped to build. So now we have an idea to build an exchange, and we've created a conference that has never been done before. Oh man, we're really on a roll. That was death number 2. We get back to Austin, really excited, still not making any money. Everything's being funded by, executive wife, and maybe bootstrapping it from our savings. And this is when really, I think as a founder, we all go through different times and journeys, but as a founder, you really have to pivot and you have to think and be able to listen to those around you. For us, we have a privilege to live in Austin, where PlebLab and all the Bitcoiners that build always give you advice. Adapt or die. So once again, let's circle back. How can we connect culture to make something special out of what we think is going to be something one day? So think different. Well, few countries are as deeply connected to its culture as Mexico is. And again, some of you have seen it, but for those that haven't, we were invited to give a talk during adopting Bitcoin in El Salvador, and this is where we made the announcement of a game. This game, everybody in the country knows it. I can certainly say that 99.999% of Mexicans know what Loteria is. And in other talks, I've talked about the history of Loteria. I'm not going to do that today. You can find it on Pleb TV, on YouTube, Twitter. But Loteria is the most iconic game that exists in the country, and it has been around for centuries. So we're giving it the Bitcoin treatment. We presented this during El Salvador, only a prototype. At this point, there's no app. It's only the idea. And some of the early Bitcoin, or some of the early testimonials we received had us really excited. Oscar from Fountain said, "It looks like you have found something that appeals to all, and that's pretty special. I'm excited to see where this goes." Andrew from Blink, formerly Galoy, "Wow, this is super fresh." Michael from Moshi, "This is a game changer, very refreshing." Anna, I don't know if you know Lightning Ventures, that's Muzz's wife. "How the F did you think of this? I love it." Then we have Will from Bitfinex, an Asociación de Bitcoin en El Salvador. "Way fun, my daughter has asked me if there's games like this," and so on and so on. And Kiyon from Stacker News, "It's gonna be huge." So receiving this feedback, once again, gets us going into, oh man, we found it. We have now the idea of building an exchange. Now we have a conference in Mexico, and we've created a cultural connection that gamifies our experience. So pumped to build, guys. So pumped. So you know what's coming. That was our death number 3. And at this point, this death was different because we started hearing people telling us, "Hey, you are on the right track, but you still have to find something else." And that something else is not something people tell you or share with you about. You have to come up with it. As a founder, you have to dig deep. I'm pretty sure Carlos had nights where he thought, you know what, this is probably not going to work. Maybe Francisco can find another CTO, and I wouldn't blame you for it, but we stuck with it. This time, it wasn't so much an adapt or die. At this point, we felt like we just needed to adapt, and we're on the right track. So what happened next? What can we take, or how can we take the next step? Think different, we're on the right track, but we need a push. And this push came from our friends, again, at PlebLab. Top Builder was a one-of-a-kind event that brought a lot of us together. And I'm going to run through some of the events that led to. I had never been part of a hackathon, but in my experience, it wasn't just a hackathon. It was a 3-month competition where we had one-on-ones with other builders who have gone through the same process. The type of exposure we received from marketing experts from New York, from the team at Wolf, was very, very special. We made it to the finals. Carlos flew into Austin. The reason I took this picture is because we pulled an all-nighter. This picture on the left was taken at around probably 4 in the morning. I don't know if you remember this, probably not. We're still experimenting with prototypes, no longer just sketches from El Salvador. At this point, for Top Builder, we have a working app. Then the next morning, we're testing it as we prepare for our presentation. Picture right here, he's not here, he couldn't make it, but Darren has been a fundamental part of Yopaki as well. The smile you see on Carlos is because the app was working. We presented, and we were fortunate enough to win Top Builder. We have the D word again, but this time it's not death. This time it's development. What happened from Top Builder carried on into pretty awesome things afterwards. We were invited by Bitcoin Magazine to be part of the conference in a space that was unique. They had never done something like this before. I don't see Shopster today, but I know they took part on this too. We were featured on CNBC. We were interviewed by Mackenzie Sagalos. And from that, there were a lot of other things that rippled from the experience we had. So I'm happy this is the first time we share it publicly. A lot of you already probably know, but the breaking news is that all of these events led to an official raise. We've closed our pre-seed round as of a couple of weeks ago, which means now we get to go build what we've been saying we were going to build for the last couple of years. But what's next? At the end of the day, this messaging is not to just say, hey, look at us. It's more of a sharing of what I see some of us are going through. We have made incredible friendships and partnerships. For example, Oliver from Jippy has become a fundamental part of what we build, both from the partnership standpoint and from the design standpoint. And if it had not been for PlebLab Startup and Top Builder, this had not happened. So what's next for us is basically getting everyone in the country to try our app into the gamified aspect of it. We are in the process of getting a fintech license. I have people in the States that are helping us with that, or people in the audience. So I'm really grateful for you and for this help. I do want to go through a founder advice checklist as you continue your journeys. And it's, to be honest, it's for us too, because we still haven't achieved anything. So every day we have to wake up and say, hey, pat your back, you pat my back. Learn to adapt. So as you might have noticed, in the startup world, a lot of things go wrong. Conversations go in different directions. Partnerships shift sideways. And we can either just run away and close shop, or we have to adapt. But there's another layer to that, which is you got to learn to adapt quickly. If things do go wrong, we got to make decisions fast. And if we make mistakes along the way, that's okay too. Ultimately, that's the way we get faster at making better choices. The next one is you'll get very uncomfortable. VCs, as Carlos knows too, will ask the worst questions you can imagine, but at the end of the day, they're the types of questions that help you understand your business in a way that you probably didn't think of. This is probably a cliche, but get comfortable being uncomfortable. So if I have another conversation with a VC or with someone that is interested in doing business with us, that really tough question from 3 months ago, I can master it today. And I can dominate it, and I can show that I really know my business. Looks like I had another one in there of a checklist. Now this one, you guys know where this is going, right? A really important piece of advice. This one comes from Odell very frequently, but it's stay humble. We got to stay humble. A couple of weeks ago, I think I had a sit down with Carr after we had raised, and I said, hey, could you do me a favor? If at any point you feel like I come in the office and there's something off, or you feel like I'm not the Francisco that has been building, please tell me, because sometimes we lose sight of that. So far, I haven't received that talk, so I think hopefully we can keep it that way. And this is a classic too. I believe that every founder in this room is pretty special just to make the trip. I know we have people from Boston. I know we have people from Austin. I don't know if Shopster's going to make it today, but at the end of the day, making a trip into such a chaotic city, which I love, I was born and raised here, but it's a pretty chaotic place to be. Having to deal with so many difficulties, things are harder in this country. That's a fact. So, unless we execute, and you probably know who said this, ideas are worth nothing unless executed. One of my favorite talks Steve Jobs gave was how everybody has ideas, but it's the difference between having the idea and the execution. There is a gigantic gap. And of course, the founders fall under this block of taking that execution. It doesn't mean it's going to work, but the execution part is so important to be able to build on top of that. The spirit of we'll figure it out is very unique to the startup phase and to founders. I know we're all comfortable here and it's a lot of fun, but backstage, there's a lot that goes on to make this podium be here, to have banners, to have food, to have people accommodations into Roma Norte. It takes a lot, and a lot of things come up. So it is up to the founders to figure it out. This is one of my favorites too, the I've got it mentality. So in big companies, there's a hierarchy of maybe 20, 30 people we have to go through. If I want to get something approved, I have to get through bureaucracy. But as a founder, Carlos sometimes plays the role of CTO, CFO, Uber driver, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of times I do take the role of CEO, CMO, social media strategist, networker, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This is pretty unique to our journey. This one's a tough one. This was really, really tough because we meet so many people in this space and we shake hands with people everywhere, and keeping your cool is difficult because problems arise. Differences of opinion arise. Keeping your cool, not insulting each other, I think takes us to a next level of what a founder really is. And I mean, from personal experience, I've heard, oh, wow, you always keep your cool. And I have responded by saying, well, maybe ask my wife. But keeping your cool it's a really important advice I could provide as well. The team, I think it speaks for itself. If you're a solo founder, then, I mean, there's, I guess, nothing except hiring phase. But finding the right team to put up with all the difficult things that come in starting a company is crucial, because that's the team that's going to take you to the next step. Optimism is huge for us too, because so many things go wrong, so many people tell you no, so many doors get shut in your face. Optimism is, I think it's probably one of my favorites. This next one pretty big too, and this is really exclusively for the founding team, depending on the stage that you're all at, whether you have employees or not. Momentum. If you have any type of momentum, it is the founder's responsibility to keep that momentum and stretch it as long as you can. Because once you lose that, it's really difficult to come back to it. You can do that in many ways. For example, partnerships, friendships, conferences, parties. I mean, I can think of many more, or I cannot think of many more right now, but you get the gist of it. There was someone that I cannot name, but someone that said this to me I don't know, maybe 6-7 months ago. And at the time I didn't really understand it, but some of the things that have happened since reassured and basically made sure that, yes, Carlos and I have to keep going every single day. Have a strategy. This one sounds pretty obvious, but when you are facing VCs asking you those questions, you have to know your business up and down. You have to project 1 year, 5 years, sometimes even 10 years into the future. One of the things we've learned too is that the VCs that really pay attention to the founders that have a vision is, are you looking for a quick exit, or are you really seeing this as your possible 5-10 year career? Be obsessed about what you do. This is incredibly important too. Like I said, we eat, sleep, drink Bitcoin, but then on top of that, having the business and make sure that what are we going to tweet today? How are we going to tell people about our app? How are we going to get people to the conference? Hey, some things changed. How are we going to go to another city? How are we going to just improvise? Be obsessed about what you do. And just in case, I don't know if I did go too long, but adapting comes in multiple shapes. I'm not highlighting every single point I made, but if I had to just write a quick checklist of some of the things that you as founders can focus on and adapt, would be the offering. Your offering might change. Product or service might change. The teams might change. We started as a team that has changed over the last year. Strategy might change. The timing might not be perfect for what you're trying to build. And it's okay. It's okay. You just have to understand and adapt based on that. The financing, sometimes you can bootstrap, and if you run out of money, you have to get creative. I know we've talked about this at PlebLab. There's a lot of creativity involved in the financing aspect of keeping your startup alive. And finally, adapt to no's. The first time you hear a no, just like asking a girl out, it's brutal. It's brutal. It's painful. But the more you hear it, it's just another day at the office. Because you can feel comfortable into not just listening the no, but saying, no, I get it. It's a no, but I need the feedback. I'm really trying to build on top of this, so I want to know why it's a no. Okay, that's great. Something that has worked really good for Carlos and myself is not just the feedback, but maintaining those interested in us to keep them updated on the things we're doing. This will be my list of adapt or die. So go out there, adapt and build. Let's fucking go. Thanks, guys.